All right, y'all. Time for best shooting guards in the Western Conference tier list, or I guess I should say every starting shooting guard in the West on this tier list. Going to be ranking the starter for each NBA team from basically worst to best. And yeah, I'm excited to get into this. We got 4 tiers, which BOTB is best of the best, just like these other tier lists, and then stud, meh, and buns to rank these 15 shooting guards in. Before we hop into the video, if you haven't already, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Uploading multiple NBA videos every single day. Would really appreciate it if y'all do subscribe. Without further ado, let's hop right into it, and let's start off with with the first player on this list, which is Mr. Cason Wallace, who I actually think is a pretty solid young NBA player. High effort, high impact defensive player. He's not one of the most important players to the success of the Thunder as a whole, in my opinion. I'm not certain, only shooting 29% from 3, that he will, if this continues anyway with that level of shooting, that he will continue to have this prominent of a role as the season progresses. But he has been, for the most part, their starting shooting guard this season, averaging he's still only averaging 6.5 points per game and actually 6 more minutes per game compared to last year, which I think is a bit of a shame. Definitely not as impressive of a season for him. His shooting has gone way down after he was a 42% three-point shooter the last season. He is only a 29% shooter this season. It's definitely been a downgrade in performance from Cason. He's still a very high-effort defensive player, and I do think he's a pretty good player, but I don't personally love the struggles as a shooter. I think the offensive efficiency just isn't there. I know it's not something he's super relied upon for as a member of the Thunder, but he's probably toward the bottom of meh. This year, honestly, you could argue buns, but I do think his defensive impact is very good. I wish the efficiency was better. Desmond Bane is a stud. He's on a good Grizzlies team. They're always good when they're healthy. Every single year. 16, 6 and 5, 46.5, 36, 83. And overall, he's having a good year, right? Like better than 2-to-1 assist to turnover ratio. That's solid. He's a capable playmaker. He's a good rebounder. He's always been a high-level shooter. This is actually his worst three-point shooting season of his career, so it wouldn't be shocking to see those numbers kind of regress a little bit, or progress, I should say, a little bit more towards the top. Scoring's a little down in general this year compared to the last few years. Even in 22-23, when they had Ja healthy, he was a 21-point-per-game scorer. This year, he's only a 16-point-per-game scorer. Has not been quite as good this season as he was the last couple, but I do think that he's a very solid player. I have no issues whatsoever with him. Low in that stud tier, probably. I think he's a really solid player. I am not a Jalen Green believer. I get that the numbers generally look okay, but I think the efficiency isn't good. He's never been an efficient player. I know he's averaging 19 a game, but 4.5, 2.5. The assist to turnover ratio has never been good whatsoever. It's never been significantly positive, and it's not even positive at all this year. Right at 2.5 to 2.5. Just not good enough. His shot selection has never been great. His decision making as a playmaker has never even been good, let alone great. And he's shooting a career low from 3 as well. Just doesn't seem like he's progressing as a player at all. He's in his 4th season now. You'd like to see growth and development as a basketball player, and it doesn't seem like he's gotten any better since his rookie year, in all honesty. That's the honest truth. What has he gotten significantly better at since his rookie year? I don't see a serious area of dramatic improvement. And look, I'm not trying to completely bash the guy. He has some good games. He can be very fun to watch, but he's a overall inefficient scorer who's not a great defender. And he's a meh player, 100%. Christian Braun having a really good year, definitely emerging into a really nice starting lineup role after he's got a much bigger role this year, and he's taken advantage of it. 14 points a game, 4.7 rebounds, 2.1 assists, shooting 56.5% from the field, 36% from 3, 63% from the 2-point range. I know playing with Jokic obviously makes it a lot easier to do that. If you just cut, Jokic will find you. You get a lot of easy buckets. But been very impressive to see this much improvement from him in his second year, I guess in his 3rd year. Much larger role, going from 20 minutes a game to almost 34 minutes a game as an every night starter. He's not an elite level playmaker by any means. Assist turnover ratio isn't quite 1 or anything like that. He plays his role well. He's a hard-nosed defender. He shoots the ball with very good efficiency. He doesn't play at all outside of the system. He just kind of plays the way that he needs to succeed next to a Jokic. And I think he's been a really good role player for the Nuggets this season. I'm a fan of his. I just can't put him any higher than Meh still, but I think he's a good player, and I think he's playing well. Kyrie Irving would be, okay, here's the thing. If I'm putting 3 guys in the best tier, Kyrie's the 3rd guy. If I'm putting 2 in the best tier, he's probably not. And honestly, I think that's what I'm going to do, because I think there's 2 guys in this list that are on a slightly higher level as overall players than Kyrie is. The thing about Kyrie is the numbers are impressive. 24, 4.5, and 5 on 49, 44, 90% from the free throw line. He's legitimately a basically 50, 40, 90 player, and he does it in high volume and very tough shot difficulty. The problem that I have with Kyrie as a Mavs fan, he is not a foul baiter at all, which is not a bad thing. He only shoots 3.6 free throws a game. That's what he shot the last couple of years. He's never been a huge free throw guy because he doesn't exaggerate contact. He doesn't try to create these fouls. If he did, I think he'd get to the free throw line more, and I think it might boost his scoring ability a little bit even more. He's already an elite scorer, an incredibly talented player, but I think especially with Luke out as of late, there needs to be a little more assertiveness by Kyrie to get to the line a little bit more, I think. At least I would love to see that. The Mavs have lost 3 games in a row, which is something that's frustrating me, but it's a whole different story. Either way, I think Kyrie's having a great year. You can't look at these numbers and say, yeah, dude shooting 44% from 3 on the degree of difficulty he plays with. You can't criticize that. You know what I mean? He's one of the most efficient players in the league. If he's not best of the best, he's absolutely stud. I mean, he's an incredible player and 100% in that stud tier. I'm not going to lie to y'all. I think Norm Powell has been a stud at the shooting guard position this season too. He's an all-star, legitimately. Like, I would seriously consider making Norm Powell an all-star reserve in the Western Conference. 24 points a game, 3.3 rebounds, 2.5 assists, 49, 45, 85. He's at that Kyrie Irving level of efficiency right now. Offensively, I mean, he's having a pretty similar year to Kyrie, not quite the rebounding or the playmaking, and the assist turnover ratio isn't good, 2.5 to 2.1, but he is an absolute microwave scorer. But he's an efficient microwave scorer. At least this season, he's been unbelievably efficient. He's always been a pretty efficient player. Always been an elite level 3-point shooter, super high level efficient shooter. But come on, man. Like, this is really, really impressive stuff from Norm Powell. You're doing it on this shot volume and for this long as the number 1 or number 2 option every single night for the Clippers has been really, really impressive. He's having an awesome year, deserves to be an all-star, and is absolutely in that stud tier. Shout out to Norm Powell, having a great year. Max Christie, I'm sorry, you are going down in that buns tier. He has recently taken over as the starting shooting guard for the Lakers, and it's been decent. 7 points, 2.3 rebounds, 1.2 assists. I mean, look, he's a fine role player, but he is nothing more than a role player. His shooting has improved a lot since the beginning of the season. He was shooting very poorly when the year started off. He's now back to a pretty reputable or respectable mark, and hopefully that number will increase even more. I think he's playing well. I think he's playing a lot of minutes and making a solid impact on the court defensively. I think he's a good player. I realistically think he's nothing more than a role player, though. And honestly, he and Cason Wallace, I think that's a fair comparison. I think you got to move Cason down. I might have been a little too generous putting him up a tier on this list, unfortunately. Sorry, Cason. Anthony Edwards, that one doesn't feel like I need to argue for at all. This one feels like an obvious, like obviously a guy averaging 25, almost 6 and 4 on over 41% from 3. Like, that's a best of the best player, 100%. He's a great defensive player. He's unbelievably athletic. He's one of the most exciting players in the sport to watch. Anthony Edwards is an awesome, awesome player. My one criticism of Anthony Edwards is a criticism that I've made a lot of these shooting guards, but I think it's a bigger criticism for him because of how important his role is to his team. He is a 3.9 to 3.1 assist to turnover ratio this season. That is significantly worse than even last season. You have got to get that better, Ant. Like, I really like Ant as a player a lot. I think he's a great player. I think he's shooting a career high in threes, and he's shooting them really well. My biggest criticism of him as a player is he's just never been a great playmaker, and he doesn't seem to be making significant strides. There are moments where I see him make the right pocket pass or the swing to the corner and like see a pass ahead, and I see moments with Anthony Edwards when I watch him where he starts to get it as a playmaker, but it's not consistent at all. Like, very, very rough consistency for Anthony Edwards when it comes to that playmaking ability. That's the only criticism of him as a player, though. He's an electric scorer, a high-level defender, high-intensity, high-effort athlete, really good player, distinctly best of the best, no doubt about it. Devin Vassell has been slotted back into the starting lineup for the Spurs after starting the season on the bench after he missed a bunch of games from injury. So he's only started, 7 games as I record this video, but he is currently the starting shooting guard on the Spurs again, I guess I should say. He's shooting 37% from 3 at 5.7 attempts a game, averaging 15 and 3 and 3, I guess. Assist turnover ratio is at least 2-1. That's good. It was better than that last season, actually. That's nice to see. A little bit more, I think, development for him as a playmaker than a lot of guys in that age 24 season. Very much a secondary type of playmaker, but still a capable one. And his minutes per game are increasing. He's starting to score the ball more. I mean, he had an 8-point game recently, but as a whole, I wouldn't be shocked if he ends the season somewhere around 17 a game from the probably about 17 a game makes sense. I think the additions of Harrison Barnes and Chris Paul have also limited his scoring a little bit more this season, and also Wemby just is so good. But he's a good player. He fits well. I think he's one of those guys that San Antonio would like to have around long term, and I got no issues with him in the Met tier. I think he's a good player. Dennis Schroeder, you are also going in the Met tier. Now, Dennis Schroeder has struggled since he reached the Warriors. He was really, really good in Brooklyn, and for the Warriors so far, you look at the numbers, he's at 30%, 20.5% from three so far with the Warriors, only averaging 9 a game. Good Lord. Really, really rough start to his Warriors tenure. With that being said, you can't expect that to last long term. And the assist to turnover ratio should get better. The efficiency should get better. He was awesome in Brooklyn on a bad team where he was a number one option on a lot of nights. I feel like he will continue to improve. This is a slump more than anything else for Schroeder in Golden State. I'm not going to hold a rough, 7-game stretch against him with how well he's played for the rest of the season. I'm still going to put him in that Met tier. I think Schroeder's having a good year. Would the Warriors need him to play better, though? Absolutely, if they want to start to improve in their standing in the Western Conference. Devin Booker, obviously best of the best as well. He's the second guy in best of the best. I think Anthony Edwards hasn't beat at this point, but I mean, you can't criticize Booker for being a 25-point per game scorer who's actually a very high-level passer. Now, the efficiency this season as a whole has been pretty rough. He's at, I think, a career low from three. Yeah, he actually is a career low from three. And really a career low from the field as well, except for his first couple seasons. Just not great efficiency-wise this season. You'd like to see a little better. The assist turnover, though, like I've said, has gotten much better over the past few seasons and really is at a pretty high level. This year, 6.5 to 2.1 is better than 3-to-1 assist turnover ratio. He's one of the best playmaking, shot-creating point guards in all of basketball. Just hasn't been hitting those shots quite as much this season through 27 games. Those are numbers that you expect with Devin Booker's talent will start to progress a little bit more towards that mean. He should be 36% from three, not 34. He should be close to 50% from the field, not 43. You would expect those numbers to progress as the season progresses. And either way, he is still one of the best shooting guards in the league. No doubt about it. Malik Monk. Malik has only recently starting again for the Kings. The problem with the Kings is they're bad no matter who they're starting. In all honesty, at least they're not very good no matter who they're starting. Malik is just, I mean, he's averaging 16 a game and 5 assists. The efficiency could be a little better. 34% from three isn't ideal. He's never been a great three-point shooter in Sacramento, but he's scoring the most he actually has since he reached Sacramento, but he wasn't a starter the last 2 seasons. He has now been a starter for about half of the year in Sacramento this year because of Kevin Huerter's struggles. Assist turnover ratio is great. He's playing well as a playmaker, as a secondary offensive option. The efficiency can be a bit hit or miss on different nights, no doubt about it, but I do think there's a lot of talent there as a microwave scorer offensively, even a rim attacker to a certain extent. A lot to like there from Malik Monk, no doubt about it. But the Kings aren't great. He's certainly not in that next tier up. I think meh is also fair for Malik. I guess Shaedon Sharpe also. I feel like meh is just that most common tier of shooting guard. That's where most of these guys fall. But Shaedon Sharpe too. Like, he's averaging 18 a game, but he's not doing it super efficiently, and he's not doing it on a great team. Like, you can't put a guy averaging 18 a game and showing a lot of flashes offensively in the Buns tier, but he's also on a terrible team shooting the ball pretty inefficiently. So do I believe he has a lot of promise as a player, as a 21-year-old averaging 18 a game? Yeah. Do I wish he was shooting the ball closer to 35% from three and not 29? Yeah, I get that he's a primary option a lot of nights offensively for the Trailblazers, and I get that he also has the ability to go out there and drop 30 on any given night. But you would like to see a little bit more efficiency. I know the Blazers are bad, but he's regressed as a shooter, not progressed the last couple seasons. So you'd like to see some progress there from Shaedon Sharpe, and therefore I'm still putting him relatively low in meh. I think that's a fair slot for Shaedon. Colin Sexton, I mean, I think he's a player that teams would like to have. I will say that. 17 for 44, 49 is really, really good three-point shooting efficiency. He's never shot the ball that well, although he's been a good shooter these last few years. But 44% from three is really, really impressive. He is the type of player that is overlooked because he plays in Utah, but would be a really, really good player in a lot of different systems, and a type of guy who I think translates well as a high effort, high intensity, capable secondary ball handling type player. Maybe he's a bench guard on a contender, but he's the type of player who I think could come in and be an impact player for a contender at the trade deadline. Would not be shocked to see him get moved. I think he is 100% going in that Met tier 100%. I got to move one of these guys down. I don't know who it's going to be because it can't be CJ McCollum either. The problem with CJ McCollum is, look, the Pelicans are terrible, but I mean, is it really CJ McCollum's fault? I don't really know. I don't know. There's been so many other problems in New Orleans. Like CJ's, he's only played 21 games, but he's averaging his 21 on, I mean, not great efficiency. It's not where his career numbers are, but it could be worse. He's got 52% effective field goal percentage still, and I mean, the assist turnover ratio is still decent. Like, he's not having a horrible year. He's a expensive contract, solid scorer who's not probably going to garner a lot of attention on the trade market, but is a good player who plays his role, no doubt about it. And then, I mean, the problem is I look at this list and I go, who is the odd guy out? There's so many guys in Met, and yet I feel like that's what all of them are. None of them are like, I really don't like that player, except for Jalen Green. I do not like Jalen Green. I think his efficiency, I just don't like the way his game translates, but it's hard to argue with some of the production still when you compare to some of the other guys in this tier. So I think I'm going to bounce. I said I wasn't going to do it, but I think I'm going to move Schroeder down. Schroeder's been so bad for the Warriors on a team that's trying to contend that I think he's been the worst of the options. I'm going to leave everybody else in meh. I think that's what we're going to do for this tier list, and we're going to leave it like that. I hope y'all did enjoy the video, and if you did, make sure you hit that like button, leave a comment, and subscribe. I'll be back with more NBA content very, very soon, and I appreciate y'all. Peace.